if we want to add seeds, we are going to add pollen and seeds, and we add them in our category of plants known as gymnosperms. So these are primarily your pine trees. So this new characteristic, this new derived character, is the addition of pollen and seeds. Important for increased dispersal and decreased need for water. Now, yes, all plants need water for photosynthesis, but these no longer have to live in a wet environment. This generation of a seed is critical. The seed allows for a protective structure around the embryo, so this seed can dry out. You've touched seeds. Seeds are dry. So inside is this little baby plant embryo waiting to germinate and hatch from this seed. But in the meantime, it's just going to sit and wait until conditions are perfect. So this allowed a whole lot of diversity to start to form. The decreased need for water in our seed plants allows us to move further away from water sources. Our seedless vascular plants, that addition to the vascular tissue had allowed the plants to get taller. And when we combine this idea of taller plants and seeds now with our gymnosperms, so seeds, we can eventually look at the development of angiosperms, or flowering plants. These are the most diverse plants on the planet now. We think probably about 80 million years ago they would have become the dominant vegetation on the planet because of their efficiency. They have very, very high reproductive rates. The reason they have such high reproductive rates with that pollen is this development of flowers. These flowering plants attract pollinators. So unlike our pine tree, where pollen is just thrown up into the air and we hope for the best for reproduction, this targeted pollination of bees and birds and bats allows the plants to become very efficient in their reproduction. And it's also going to allow us ways in which to co-evolve with animals, because the plants are going to give the animals nectar, right? Nectar is a food source, it's a sugar. So these animals come in, are eating these nectar, picking up the pollen and moving on to the next plant, moving the pollen around, dispersing the plants further. Now these flowers, of course, will come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, but the idea is to draw in a pollinator. And here I have a flower under visual light, your normal color light, and under UV. Do you see how there's kind of this target in the middle? This target actually shows the pollinators where they can get the best food. The nectar is in the center of this flower. But it's also, you see all these little dots? Those little dots are pollen. So as the pollinator moves in to eat the nectar, it's going to pick up pollen and move it on to the next plant. This coevolution becomes very important between plants and animals. You can see here, look at the nose on this guy, and you see this is the flower he prefers. How cool is that? That he has this nose structure that will fit perfectly into that flower. Do you think anybody else is pollinating that flower? Not a chance. Why is this so important? Because we have now specific pollination. A bee gets covered in pollen, moves from flower to flower, isn't picky about the flower he's pollinating or sitting on or eating from. These guys, very particular. So we look at the bat noses and flowers, hummingbirds, perfectly fitting into these flowers. So we get specific pollination, much, much better for the plant. Following pollination, of course, we can get production of seeds, and that production of seeds allows us to move the plant even further. So before, the pollen would have potentially just fallen straight to the ground like we saw in our ferns, with the swimming sperm straight to the ground. The pollen from pine trees is spread, but not efficiently. Now we can develop things, these fruits and particular seed dispersal mechanisms that are going to allow dispersal of the plant embryo to a new location. Remember that seed is going to give us a nice protective coating around our baby embryo that's just going to wait for germination under perfect water and temperature conditions. Why produce fruit then? Well, the biggest thing you've got to keep in mind is fruit is not for the seed directly. Most individuals think that the fruit provides nourishment to the seed. That is incorrect. The fruit attracts pollinators or seed dispersers. So then this tasty, tasty fruit brings in these seed dispersers. They eat the fruit and the seeds, and then they go off and deposit those seeds in feces in other locations. The feces, full of seeds, is what's actually going to give nutrients to the developing embryo.